Roddy. I decided to just formally introduce myself. Welcome to the most interesting fan perspective in the history of fan perspectives. This is Larry's new wrestling podcast. And what's that last word? Stuff. Yes, Larry's new wrestling podcast and stuff. When we talk about wrestling, we talk about stuff. I'm on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. Folks, welcome to the most unique perspective of a fan who is a passionate one. I grew up watching it. It took me away from a lot of things. My grandfather was murdered tragically. It took me away from my dad's illness. Professional wrestling is the best escapism, and not booze, and not anger, not depression. None of that makes a person happy. What makes them happy is the inner person, the person that they look in the mirror, like Michael says, the man in the mirror. Ah, yeah. See, I'm not supposed to sing on this show, but please understand one thing. It doesn't matter. And I will sing if I choose. And I will do it if I want. Because it's my show, even though it's technically our show. Welcome to Larry's New Wrestling Podcast and stuff, where I talk about everything from COVID-19, sports, entertainment, and the focus is professional wrestling. And today we're going to focus on Roddy Piper, one of the most legendary names in the history of the WWF and also sports entertainment, aka professional wrestling. We are here today to speak about his career. I'm going to be following the series on A&E. We did the Stone Cold Steve Austin one, and now we're doing the Roddy Piper one. So basically, both of them that you can watch on our previous podcast, that this is a really cool series, 8-part series that I went to the Dearborn, Michigan location, the drive-in theater, to see a private pre-screening, first come, first serve, and I got there and I was able to see this documentary film on the big screen, and I had some cool interviews that is also on a previous episode for this movie, which was an autobiography documentary presented by WWE, merged with A&E Channel to show the legends, and that's the name of it, of professional wrestling. And another legend is the Hot Rod, and we'll be discussing him as our finale today. But I'm jumping ahead. Now we need to get back to, unfortunately, something sad, because Roddy Piper is no longer with us. That happened back in 2015 where he passed away. And that's sad to hear, because we also had, and I didn't allude to it on a previous podcast, Jim Crockett. Now, Jim Crockett, unless I did, it was very short, but Jim Crockett was very much a big presence in the Southern-based wrestling. And he passed away on March 3rd of 2021. And he was basically is what WCW ended up becoming. And he was a legend of the sport. His family and many wrestlers came through there, like the Hot Rod, like who we're going to speak about this afternoon. And I can tell you right now, I'm excited to speak about Roddy Piper and this documentary on A&E, because his career also was given a chance to really take off. And I think the NWA and that dog collar match was the reason why. And I'm going to talk about Jim Crockett right now. He was born August 10, 1944 in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he passed away at the age of 76 in Charlotte, North Carolina. And his career, taking over Jim Crockett Sr., had decided his son-in-law, John Ringley, would run for Jim Crockett P. Reluctantly to go, I hate reading these, they never make sense. He was the NWA president. He ran for a second term, and I can tell you right now, a third term. So let me explain something about the National Wrestling Alliance. They actually had a committee, And this committee was like a board of directors, and Ric Flair spoke about it, that basically people would vote. And then when the last Monday Night Show came, Ric Flair was adamant when he spoke to Vince McMahon that you can't hold us in the palm of your hand. And Crockett's name and other legendary promoters' names were mentioned because Crockett Promotions essentially was bought out by Ted Turner, and that became NWA, transitioning into WCW, but they originally called World Championship Wrestling, and based out of Georgia territories. And Roddy Piper, Greg Valentine, Ric Flair, the NWA was hot in the early 80s. And this was before Roddy Piper jumped over to the WWF at the time to work with Hulk Hogan and the rock and wrestling stuff that was happening in 1985. But Crockett was a huge hand in this. And his legend and family legend, because his brother was involved with it, being an announcer. But you know what? Tony Schiavone, the NWA, Ric Flair, the Four Horsemen, all that was Crockett. And I can tell you, I enjoyed that era of wrestling. I love the fact Ric Flair was like the R-rated version of what the WWF cartoon show wasn't, because it was like two different worlds there. The NWA was blood, in the ring, steel cages, and really more gory, bloody wrestling. That's why I like that one versus I was like, whoa, with that one. And then I would go back to the don't go messing with the country boy, country boy. That's the different versions of the 80s that I was able to enjoy as a wrestling fan. And it was amazing because I just went back and reflected in my head, because really it was an amazing time. I'd watch it on cable, I'd watch it on syndication, wherever I could find it, on pay-per-view. The NWA back in the day, with Jim Ross with the very southern, he's on the top. Oh my God, this is the NWA. That's where we wrestle. We don't pose here. That's when he was talking crap about Hulk Hogan in his own way. Like, it was like an undercut, but they were like the number one company. And everybody knew it, that McMahon buying out the territories and eventually would buy out WCW by 2001. That meant the war was over. Just like today, the war is over. There's no more competition. When Chris Jericho went on WWE, representing AEW on WWE Network, aka Peacock, which is owned by NBC, it's all business now. Game over. Triple H is going to be in charge sooner than you think. And Vince McMahon is still in charge. And the product is what it is. It's without me. Whatever. That's my other podcast. Anyways, I wanted to address, we didn't mean to miss a tribute to Jim Crockett, and God rest, and thank you for giving back to the business. And, I really appreciated his product. It was a huge influence in my life. So I wanted to give a tribute on this episode. So Jim Crockett, to Gino as well, the fact that this gentleman played in the NFL and, at the age of 33. And, we could also say maybe the hits influences drinking. We don't know. Mental health, folks. It's real. I'm 2.5 years sober. So what's going on with this tragedy, we should think about it. We have a chance. It's never too late to get a phone call from someone who you thought you severed a relationship with and make peace. And don't even mention it if they didn't even remember why they maybe stopped calling you. Well, guess what? Chicken butt. And guess what? Life is too short to really think in the past. You can't say would have, could have, should have. Why? It's in the past. You can't get in a time machine. You can't get in the DeLorean and hit 88 miles and go somewhere else. You have to hit the gas pedal in here and move forward and progress and have an attitude of gratitude and learn to accept what you can't change. Should I get the bagpipes? Yeah, that's not bagpipes. Anyways, because I don't have bagpipes. I can't do bagpipes. But I can tell you, I can say one thing. One term that I've used with endearment since I was younger. I'm still young and sexy, but nobody cares. I've said 3 words. the Hot Rod. And every time I heard Roddy Piper, now it can be a tongue twister if you don't enunciate. Rowdy, Rowdy, Roddy, Roddy, Roddy Piper, Piper. But try to say that fast. Roddy Piper, Roddy Piper. It's just RRP and RIP to him because he's no longer with us. Tragically, he passed away at the age of 61, I believe it was. Yes, the Hot Rod at age 61. He said in an interview with Rich Eisen, people don't even get to see, or at some point in time, he said that he doesn't even think he'll see the age of 65. And he was correct. These are the tragedies of working in the genre and the business and the amazing art form that we call professional wrestling. This show is a circus show of sorts with a cartoon-esque with hardcore legends that bled in even a dog collar match for your entertainment, that injured their ears and their hearing, I should know, for this business, from permanent hearing damage and physical pain. And there's a reason why, because I took notes, lots of notes, folks, for you today, all right, on the legendary Hot Rod and the documentary that you must see on A&E. If you can find a way to watch it, if you don't have cable, research it. You'll find it. It's out there, but it's up to you to discover one of the most legendary names in professional wrestling. So where it all began was Saskatoon, okay? And I can say this gentleman, Roddy Piper, was 15 years of age in Saskatoon when he did his first match with Larry the Axe Hennig. And that would be the father of Mr. Perfect, Curt Hennig, and the grandfather of Curtis Axel, who was just released by WWE not too long ago. And he was part of the B team. But most people don't know him as well as they know his dad, and as much as they know as well, maybe even the 1970s legends. So we're talking like 3 generations of Hennig, and the most legendary name who came from scratch. He found his way into show business. He found his way into professional wrestling. He scratched his way. He earned it. He was even in fights. He lived on an Indian reservation. He was really an outcast in his family, and he was even abused by his grandfather, physically abused, and even ran away from sexual abuse. And guess what? He survived and made it and entertained us, the wrestling fan. And this very deep documentary that will make you cry and feel sad for a man who really loved his family. And his kids are in this documentary, and his wife, the widow, Kitty, who speaks volumes of her love for this man. And she said she wouldn't change a thing. She thought he was the funniest man in the world. And she fell in love with a professional wrestler. And she was a server at a restaurant serving prime rib to him because that was his favorite. And eventually, a guy, but I think I got his name, by the way, his tag team partner, by the name of, hold on, I thought I wrote it down. Yes, hold on, if I don't find it anyways, he had something in the name of Killer, I think, that went up to her and asked if he could get the phone number, which I thought was silly. Would you ever give a guy named Killer your phone number and be like, yeah, or just yes to anything for someone with a name with something with a bad context to it? Well, anyways, she got the phone number, the bottom line, because Larry said so. But the whole point of this is Roddy Piper fell in love with a waitress and raised a family because of the sport of professional wrestling. He would make his way into Portland, and he would actually be a trailblazer, no pun intended, because the Portland Trailblazers, you get it? I know, I'm sorry. It's just what happens on our show, folks. Deal with it, accept it, that's who I am, okay? Roddy Piper found his way into professional wrestling out of Los Angeles. Even there, that's where he got his breaks with a gentleman by the name of Gene LaBelle. And Gene LaBelle saw something special in the markability of Piper's promo skills. And after that $15 2-second match, whatever it was, where Larry the Axe Handy broke his nose, he said that's where he was hooked. So someone breaks your nose and you're hooked to something. I would think that would be the opposite. You see this nose, folks, if you're watching on YouTube, if you broke it, I wouldn't be too happy because maybe you'll line it up and make it look normal instead of it being crooked. If you look on, anyways, let's not focus on that. It's not about the exterior, right, Bird? Yeah, anyways, my business partner says it's not about my looks, even though I know I'm handsome. Anyways, back to focus. Piper made his way into the territory of Portland after battling in LA with feuds with the Guerrero family, starting riots by instead of doing the Mexican national anthem, he did the La Cucaracha, and then all of a sudden, steel chairs flying in the ring. He couldn't go out to eat without fearing his life. Back then, people thought it was real because they treated it as real and not show, not like today's generation of wrestling. Now these wrestlers really are safer. Back then, people wanted to take them out because they were pissing off the fans because that was their job. A heel was supposed to be a heel, and Roddy Piper was one of the greatest heels in the history of wrestling. And I can tell you for a fact that Stone Cold and Piper documentaries that I've witnessed now on A&E are beautifully done. I guarantee you this 8-part series is going to be well worth. Each week on Sunday nights, they come out. So please tune in to those documentaries. I'm telling you, they're wonderful. I'm not even done talking about it. I know so much, and I want to share with you the hot rod story. Now in Portland, and Carl, our last interview with a wrestler, Carl Stiles spoke highly about his wrestling relationship with him in Portland. He spoke highly of Roddy Piper during those days. They knew each other. And I represent Carl Stiles. And if you're looking to book him, reach out to me. Search him on Facebook. We are looking to book Carl Stiles as well. And he spoke highly of the hot rod, Roddy Piper. And folks, Roddy Piper, we're going to do tribute shows. Carl Stiles and myself are going to coordinate. And we're going to make this work for you from Vegas and beyond. And we're going to make it work wherever you want to show out there in your city as these COVID restrictions. You stay healthy and stay happy. If you got the vaccine, congratulations. If you're waiting up, congratulations. Whichever way you decided, stay healthy and stay happy and share the positivity. Have an attitude of gratitude during this very difficult time in our world. Roddy Piper sacrificed his body in a dog collar match with Greg the Hammer Valentine in the NWA. He took his ear, and Greg Valentine in this documentary said that they called it the year of the ear, where he destroyed Piper's ear to shreds in 1 year worth of fighting that culminated basically in a dog collar match for a big pay-per-view because they needed to build it. The NWA. This was pre-WWF days. He wasn't a part of the rock and wrestling at this point. This is the early 80s. And then finally, when Vince McMahon, would you believe it? Vince McMahon reached out to the hot rod because it wasn't only about the blood and gore. It was his ability on the stick, his promo skills, and his ability to piss people off. And he pissed off a lot of the legends. He even at one point called himself the Legend Killer before Randy Orton ended up really monikering it and making it his own. But Piper, back in the 80s, coined it, the Legend Killer. And he was running havoc. So Vince McMahon needed a counter heel to Hulk Hogan. And who better than this guy who didn't have to do blood and gore? He just had to be entertaining because Vince McMahon had an idea. It was called rock and wrestling. Cyndi Lauper, okay? Cyndi Lauper Girls just wanna have a had. Oh, girls just wanna have. Yeah, her. Yeah, I'm sorry I had to sing so you know who I'm talking about. Wait, really, I didn't have to sing it, but I just, never mind. Whatever. She was a part of rock and wrestling, folks. That was the reason why he built that brand. Piper Hogan, mid 80s. That's what got me hooked. When I was learning about what pro wrestling was, that's when I was hooked as a fan to watch every segment of Piper's Pit, to see Andre the Giant grab him by the shirt and lift him up in the air from the sitting position practically. Hulk Hogan and Piper having heated arguments. Cowboy Bob Orton, okay, who I'm a huge fan of Randy Orton, and Mr. Wonderful, who wasn't always so nice, but entertained and had the chiseled body. And Piper refused to job to Mr. T. He didn't want to show Mr. T, the A team, any courtesy. You're walking into my world, I'll pity the fool. Yes, Piper was a part of that. And Piper did not like him. Backstage, they had real animosity because he didn't want the show business guy making us look like fools because he bled. Remember? Here's a part of that generation of wrestler. He took that business seriously. And Hulk Hogan understood Vince McMahon's vision. And he told Piper, look, listen to me. You can make a huge amount of money, but he never listened. He was strictly business, territories. He's from the old school. That's why him and Ric Flair wreaked havoc. And he was running and gunning with Ric Flair. And then he came home and he tried to be a family man. And that's why he burned out 300 days a year and barely seeing his family and sacrificing that blood and the ears and all that. It's real, folks. Wrestling is not the F word. If you treat it like it was back in the day from the 70s and 80s and take it back as the 60s and 50s, and this circus show form of entertainment, Lou Thez and the greats of professional wrestling, this thing is not just Bray Wyatt and The Fiend. It has lineage and decades of history, folks. The NWA title, my favorite belt with Ric Flair. That's when Piper was working with Flair in the 80s, before the Horsemen, and then the Horsemen will form. But they were wreaking havoc because Flair and Piper were running gunning. That's why I was there in 2005 for the Hall of Fame speech. When Piper was inducted, I was there. I was there live in Anaheim, or excuse me, in LA at the Shoreline in Universal. Anaheim, I was at WrestleMania 12. That's where I was. I've been in Southern California as an actor, and it was an honor and a privilege to be there that night while I was still in college, wrapping up at San Francisco State. I made the trip down to LA for that ceremony. And I guarantee you, folks, that was a huge moment for me because I almost missed it because I was doing something, trying to be a goody good two shoes, but that's okay. I made it for the induction of Piper and Hogan, and to see Ric Flair out loud talk about, you want to hear another story about Piper? And Piper just nodding his head, because at that time the inductee people would sit even up on stage with them, and you could see it on the big screen that Ric Flair was having the time of his life when Piper was trying to get through his speech. Like, yeah, I used to be married after that speech, probably not anymore. But his wife loved him. And in this documentary, she breaks down. And, even after he's gone, you could tell the love that his kids have for him. And I believe his daughter is pursuing a career in pro wrestling. And Ronda Rousey even had some footage of her training Piper's daughter. So this will live on forever. The Piper legend. Just because he passed away in 2015 after doing that very creepy Rich Eisen where he couldn't even gather his words. He kept blanking out. I saw it. It's sad. And he looks very tired. The painkillers, the cocaine, the road stories, they're all real, folks. That part is very real. And these gentlemen who are no longer with us that entertained us fans, we can't shake their hand anymore. But I was fortunate enough to meet him at the Comedy Store. and to meet him while he was pursuing his comedy career. And I love the fact that a long time associate of mine and friend, Steve Simone, was able to really coach Piper and help Piper discover his stand-up comedy career. And I didn't work with them, but I would have loved to coordinate a show. Unfortunately, we never did. And, for whatever reasons, it didn't come together. But Piper said, anything I ever wanted, just go to Steve. And we could have done it. And Piper was just so down to earth, and I regret not getting a photo with him, but I always have it right here. And he was just so kind. He was just so human. Same thing with Sergeant Slaughter, who came to support him, down to earth. I had a great conversation with him one night, and I didn't get a photo either, but I have it right here. The Sarge, G.I. Joe, we were just shooting the you-know-what, me and the Sarge. It was so real, surreal, should I say. I was like a kid in the candy store, like, dude, G.I. Joe cartoon, bro. Yo, Joe. I was like so happy. I was so like, and for those of you out there that watched it, you know what I'm talking about, man. So don't even act like you don't know. G.I. Joe, and the end of it, where they give you a life lesson, and Cobra Commander, you didn't win. And Destro, and Evil Lynn, or was that He-Man? Anyways. I'm sorry, man. I just went on 80s tirade. We got to do an episode on 80s cartoons. That's in the future. I think I'm going to wrap it up, folks. I think we've said something that we've always said. Don't treat life don't treat life like it doesn't matter. Believe in yourself. Achieve your goals. Believe in everything you want. And you see these gentlemen that have bled, sweat, and paid the ultimate sacrifice with their life to entertain us, the fan. And they don't necessarily make right decisions by blaming the promotions they work for, but we have to always accept responsibility and accept accountability for our actions. We know what we're getting into. If we want to pursue show business, we don't have to drink at the bar. I can go entertain you folks on stage and get off and say, thank you for coming. Hey, can I buy you a drink? Yeah. Sure, buddy. If it makes you happy, make it a sugar-free Red Bull. And we'd love you as a sponsor, by the way. Just saying. Anyways, thank you, folks. Let's live and breathe and be happy and be rowdy. And always remember the hot rod. Not just on the WWE Network, aka Peacock, where you can subscribe and watch WrestleManias. We're at WrestleMania 5. He does the fire extinguisher on Morton Downey Jr. And he is They Live. If you've ever seen that movie, it's a cult classic. That is the hot rod. And maybe his daughter will grace the ring, or his son, Colt, will grace the ring. We never know. It could be the other generations that entertain us like they do today. The Hart family, Legacy, Piper, and Hart, the Intercontinental Championship match at WrestleMania at the Hoosier Dome, where Piper said, I'm going to put you over. And he says that's one of the greatest matches, if not at that moment of his career. The Hot Rod putting Bret the Hitman Hart over. And he finds a way to be cousins practically with the Hitman because of that Saskatoon lineage. So he always considered Bret a cousin of the family. He said that to me as well. He considers Bret a cousin, blood. And that is the Hot Rod that I met at the Comedy Store, whose name is on the Comedy Store wall. So he was not just a wrestler. He was an entertainer. And thank you, Hot Rod. As we wrap it up on this very rowdy and very interesting and very educational, and I raise my voice because I'm humble and I have an attitude of gratitude. And thank you for all you subscribers. Share it anywhere you go. Laugh Factory, anywhere you go and you see us live with wrestlers that do stand up. Wherever you go, wherever you support us, just remember our life is whatever we make of it. Let's just go out there into the world today and simply make it rowdy. Make it whatever you want it to be. Just make it a great one. Thank you all for tuning in to today's new wrestling podcast and stuff. Subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. Facebook us, like our page, and Instagram LLL90210. And if you want to book Carl Styles, hit me up. Peace! See you later. Take care. Bye-bye now. I'm really leaving. I gotta go. Bye.